and welcome to our webinar and panel discussion today. The topic of the day is accelerating material traceability and sustainability with digital product passports. I'm Trishna Menon, Senior Growth Marketer at Circularise, and I'll be your host and moderator today. On the left, you'll see our panelists, Ton. He is a general manager at Teijin. We have Herke, who's the business development manager, and we have at Teijin as well, and Phil. He's the head of sustainable innovations at Circularise, so you guys can give everybody a wave. And I will be making sure this session runs smoothly and on time. We also have Dr. Christian Norhausen, I think, group leader at Teijin, who will join the panel, and Matthew Frostenstein, Raymer from Teijin, as our guest speakers, who will be giving us some insight into a few DPP projects we've collaborated on. To give you a little bit more context for this session, today we're sharing a story of a hands-on collaboration between Teijin and Circularise to build and test digital product passports, not just as a compliance checkbox, but as a practical engine for circularity. Today, we trace materials end-to-end, proved closed-loop flows in real applications, and learn what it takes to scale DPPs across complex supply chains. Before we begin, some housekeeping notes. You can ask questions at any time during the session using the question tabs at the bottom of your screen. I encourage you to do this actively. It's a great chance to pick the brains of some of the people, our panelists here, who's doing this at an enterprise scale. We will also be recording this webinar and sharing it with all of you after. To keep the session a bit interactive, we've also included some polls, which we will display somewhere towards the end of during the panel discussions. And it'll help us get your opinions on the subject matter. Yes, the presentation will also be shared afterwards. Okay, let's continue. Here's the plan. First, we have a lightning introduction to Circularise and Teijin. Then Teijin will walk you through their traceability journey and the DPP projects we've delivered together on our platform. The why, the how, the outcomes. After that, we can open the panel to Ton, Herke, and Phil, and our guest speakers to dig into what worked, where the friction was, and what's next. And a little bit about Circularise. We're a product traceability platform headquartered in the Netherlands that helps companies collect supplier data beyond Tier 1. We automate internal chain of custody and material transfers and disclose verifiable information through DPPs with privacy safeguards that keep sensitive details under control. We have a growing global footprint with trusted customers. We've also opened up a new office in Japan at the beginning of this year. Our role in this project is to provide infrastructure to prove material histories. And now to the work itself. With Teijin, we've tested DPPs in live business conditions. Now, Ton, Matthew, and Stein will take you through the DPP journey, and then we'll have Phil and Herke join us for the panel. A quick reminder before we begin, please ask questions as much as you can. And Ton, over to you.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, thank you for this opportunity to show our journey around traceability and digital product passport. And this journey is certainly not a linear journey. We are learning along the way via proof of concepts, trying to find out together with Circularise what is working, what is not working, and how can we implement effectively digital product passport in our business portfolio. And I'm very happy that Stein and Matt is here to explain from the business themselves their experience. So without too much further ado, I would like to speed up a little bit for my introduction presentation. Teijin, well, you can find the websites, what Teijin exactly is, and what we are exactly doing. Our main businesses is fibers and products and high performance materials. That means carbon fibers, aramid fibers, polycarbonate, high-end materials. That kind of materials we are strong at, but also we have a healthcare sales and development and in composites. So we are very pretty much in general in the beginning of the value chain. That automatically implies that for us to become more circular is one of the biggest challenges that we in Teijin are currently facing. And that's also why we took we anticipated on the change and had the early collaboration with Circularise, in which we I would like to show you the results here today. So actually our purpose, we defined in Teijin our purpose statement, and that is pioneering solutions together for a healthy planet. And the word pioneering and solutions is very central in the activities that I am leading for Teijin here in an open innovation community at Brightlands in the Netherlands. We aim to collaborate with other partners, outside partners, to develop technology or to close the circular economy loop. But we also are internally focused by collaborating with business units to collect what is the needs of the business units, and by our external contacts combine them. And I think what you will see today is a pretty nice example of that. In our team, we started a collaboration with Circularise. We found the company, we found it interesting, we took it into our strategy, and indeed we tried to pioneer to find these solutions together in these proof of concepts. And that's exactly what we would like to show you today by examples of the business units. Teijin presence in Europe. Teijin is not very known in Europe, although as a Japanese company in Japan, it is many people know the existence of Teijin or have people working there. Teijin is quite well known in contrast to Europe and the US, although we have quite some people working in Europe in various business units. We are working in automotive technology, mainly developing composites in France, Portugal, Czech Republic. We have a carbon fiber producing facilities and development, mainly in Germany. We will show one example of this business unit. We have Teijin Aramid, Aramids from the Netherlands, from here. Teijin Frontier, that's a product and converting company. We are especially in Europe serving the automotive industry in all kinds of upholstery and activities, and we have a resin activity in Europe. So uh, we are quite diversified in material activities here in Europe, and this is our base for collaboration from Europe. So what do we do? I mentioned I'm responsible for Teijin Brightlands Innovation Center, and that's a really open innovation center. Brightlands is an open innovation campus where there's a university, where there are startups, scale-ups, all kinds of activities. They have a focus around circular economy, but also on material production, so polymers, traditionally, because it's a former DSM site. So this was an excellent site for Teijin to focus or to centralize our open innovation activities. And what we try to do here in this campus is to bring the Teijin businesses in Europe together with Teijin R&D in Japan in an open innovation community to work on renewable energy conversion, so new materials for instance, electrolyzers, fuel cells, and so on. But another important pillar is to stimulate the circular economy. That means that we're working on recycling technologies on itself, which can be useful to close the loop for Teijin products or to develop new products. But also the traceability aspect is a part of this group. This is what we do here. So we are part of the Teijin Innovation Center. I mentioned there are a lot of companies, about 130 companies, 3,000 employees, 1,000 students on campus, and not Teijin employees. Let's be clear about that. We are a relatively small unit in this campus. And we have these two functions, Center of Excellence for Circular Economy, from which this activity which you are listening to today is one of the activities. And we have the Functional Material Department. So we are open to discuss whatever topic. So even if you listen there and you would like to collaborate with us, please come in contact with us if you have any interest to collaborate with us on either of these two topics. Now going to the topic of today, digital product passport. Uh, we are strongly believing within Teijin that if you want to close the loop, you need much more transparency than that was in the past. In the past, companies like Teijin or similar companies in the linear supply chain, of course, we check our qualities of everything or materials that go out of the factory. But essentially, once it's outside the factory, we have no idea where it is. We have no, of course, our next customers we know, but further on in the value chain, there is a little understanding about the whole value chain. But if you want to close it, you need to collaborate with all the partners in the value chain, and that needs trust and transparency. Actually, we took this as the starting point for collaboration with Circularise and doing the proof of concepts. And in the proof of concepts, which will be illustrated by Stijn and Matt in the next minutes, they will share some of the experience that we had in doing these early stage proof of concepts. So this concludes my part of the presentation, and then I would like to hand over the stick to Stijn Rijmer of Teijin Aramid to show some practical implications of what we are doing.
Yes, thank you, Tom, for the good introduction. So, hello everybody. I'm Stijn, indeed, working for Teijin Aramid in the Netherlands. I will walk you through the proof of concept that we did together with Circularise and with the TBEC team from Teijin. So for those of you who have no idea what an Aramid is, we put a very small picture up on the screen right now. Basically, Teijin Aramid is a chemical production company, and we make high-performance fibers, which is a yarn. So what you can see in the right picture on the screen. This is the product we make, and this is used in several applications, for example, as a lightweight alternative to steel. One of the products we make, and this is actually the product we will look at in this proof of concept, is a sling, which can be used for example, a crane for lifting equipment. Now, the proof of concept that we did actually relies on a process that we have been doing for a while at Teijin Aramid, but we decided to use this as an opportunity to add another layer of transparency to it. So what exactly are we talking about? At the moment, you see a bit of a very active picture in your screen, so I will walk you through it step by step. We start on the top left. What we see actually is part of a value chain. On the top left, we see our own production site. We make our raw material in a factory in Delfzijl in the Netherlands, which we then spin into yarn at another production site in Emmen. This yarn is our end product. This end product is then shipped to Hampijan, in this case, which you see towards the right on the screen, where it is combined with polyester to create a sling. This sling is sent to the end user, after which it comes back through the recovery of material, where the aramid is recovered from it. It is shipped back to us, and it is turned into pulp. So this exact part of the value chain we have been doing for years. However, if people buy pulp from us, they know it's recycled, but other than that, they have no idea. So what we actually chose to do with this proof of concept is we chose to use the digital product passport, which we included for all of the steps. So for the yarn first, then for the sling, and eventually for the pulp, to actually show what journey the material has been through and to give people the certainty that this material was recycled. And we will see a very good example of this in a couple of slides where we will see what the digital product passport actually looks like. So we used it to create additional value in transparency for our circular product. Of course, you can also show this same value chain in a Sankey diagram, where we see that by putting product passports at different steps along the value chain, you can capture all of the flows that have been in the value chain, or all the mass flows that have appeared in the value chain along the way. What does such a passport actually look like, and what is then the value? The base of the passport is on the left, where you can see the product properties. This can just be used as a simple way to share information with everybody along the value chain. Very useful. Very useful for sharing quick information, but doesn't add anything that isn't there already. It's just very convenient. However, what you see on the right side is the chain of custody and the history of the material. So this is what I was talking about on the pulp. You can actually see where the recycled feedstock comes from. So it might be very small on the screen, but if you look at the top lines, you see that the pulp is created partially from recycled feedstock, which came from the sling from Hampijan, which came from the yarn that came from us again. So this transparency is really one of the biggest advantages of the digital product passport. And that's something that we wanted to show in this proof of concept. Of course, it's not the only advantage. It's also a very convenient way of sharing different types of information. Normal information that is already shared, like product origin or product specs, they can all be included in a digital product passport. And next to that, all sorts of technical data. And best of all, by using blockchain technology, the authenticity of the data can be guaranteed, and it can be selected on confidentiality. So you can share certain data with certain people and not share it with other people. And this really is a great concept, and we are very happy to have tried it out and to continue working with it at Teijin and Aramid. And with that, I would like to hand it over to the other proof of concept that has been done within Teijin, and that's to Matt.
Thank you to everybody and for this opportunity to explain what we've done at Teijin Carbon with the digital product passport and the kind of the backup that Circularise provide. So where we used this in this case was a new product. So a proof of concept digital product passport for a new product, a Tenax Next product. So that's it's a carbon fiber, and it's our first step in the world of recycling carbon fibers. So in this case, we're taking a process manufacturing residue, as it's described there. So it's unspooled carbon fiber. It's processed and converted into a short fiber product that's usable then by customers. So we wanted to use the digital product passport to show the kind of the heritage of the material and show that there was as much traceability with a recycled, or I mean potentially recycled material, as there is with our virgin material. So classically, we supply carbon fiber to the aerospace industry. Of course, as you would expect, there's very stringent and very accurate traceability requirements there. But how do you bring the same idea then to a recycled material? And so this was our step to kind of take the steps in the right direction to try and understand how we can maintain the material heritage for recycled materials. So sorry, slightly just to give an overview of the product, it's a 6mm chopped fiber produced out of this manufacturing residue. And what we did was, of course, the material which starts on the right-hand digital product passport, it goes through a process. So we collect it, pack it, it goes to a subcontractor, and then is converted into a product that we can then sell under a Tenax Next, as a Tenax Next product. That gets used by a intermediate customer who converts it into a polymer compound, and then that gets sold to a molder of a final part. So in this case, the final part was a tire lever, so for removing a tire from a bicycle. And there's a digital product passport there. And then if you look into that digital product passport, it shows that there's a certain content of this material, Tenax Next R2SP513. And then if you look into the digital product passport for that, it shows there is the content of that. So that's 100% of that material comes from this, what we term random fiber, which is this residue, this byproduct from our manufacturing process. And what we can do there is within that, then we showed in this proof of concept, we showed that different batches of different lots of material, so different production lots, all contributed to the material, and they were present in a different percentage. Therefore, so that material consists of a certain percentage of one production lot, a certain percentage of another production lot, and so on. And there we're trying to show the full heritage, the full traceability of that material from what is an internal byproduct, so a non-prime material, and how that then is converted to a material that a customer can use and use to mold their product. And all of that transparency and traceability then is shown through the product passport. What we did was the quantities and percentages were transferred through each stage, and we use some of the functionality within this technology to maintain confidentiality on production sites or on subcontractors and so on. So yeah, that's hopefully gives you the overview of how we in Teijin Carbon did this proof of concept, tested it out, tried to learn some lessons on how we can use it for recycled, just to maintain the traceability on recycled fiber products. So thank you, and I'll hand over to the panel discussion.
Hi, thank you again, Ton and Stein and Matthew, for the detailed description on what the project was about. Now we move on to the panel discussion part, where we have Phil and Herke and Christian also joining us. And we'll move on from why you started it to what you learned and how this scales across businesses and ecosystems. So my first question is to you, Ton. Let's start with you. What role does Brightlands Innovation Center play in scaling traceability across business units, and why was now the right time to make DPPs a strategic priority?
Yeah. Actually, it's a strong belief that we have that closing the circle from linear to circular needs good preparation. And it's actually also my own personal belief that this is the case. Not necessarily every business unit may, or every organization, part of the organization will deal it with me, because there are also some part of the organization who say, well, when it comes, I will just implement it. But I strongly believe that this will bring a kind of competitive advantage of companies to think about new businesses, to create new ways of collaboration, to find out something new. So really on the innovative aspects, I truly believe that this is something that should be done. And that's why in Teijin Brightlands Camelot campus, where we are now situated as an open innovation community, we can openly explore with, on the one hand, business units, and the other hand, external partners, what it means, what digital product passport means, and what could be the competitive advantage for us as a company in the future to be a little bit more front runner compared to our peers in the organization. So it's really starting from the belief of innovation and doing something new, and also reflecting, let's say, our purpose statement of pioneering solutions together for a healthy planet. I think it's just one of the examples of how we materialize on this product portfolio. So, and why now? Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of discussion going on, and you cannot. There's a lot of legislation coming on, and some legislation will start already pretty soon, or has already started, and some items will start later. Um, I believe to be ahead of the game. So years before the actual implementation will be mandatory, it's good to start these kind of initiatives, and that is roughly now. And also the opportunity to start a new center here in Brightlands, we just took to take this on our agenda.
Yes, that's true. Does Christian, do you have anything, or Herke, do you have anything to add to this? In the meantime, I do have a question to ask the audience on this topic. Which primary value do you see in traceability and the DPP for your business, if it's applicable for you? And in the meantime, maybe we can move on to Phil, where Phil, what makes Circularise's approach uniquely positioned to solve traceability at scale?
Well, sure thing, and thank you for the question. Regards traceability at scale. So traceability and transparency is lovely, but then we have the flip side, which is confidentiality and protecting sensitive information. Obviously, what we've just seen with Teijin colleagues is a demonstration of chemical processes that are quite sensitive, but then you need the proof to balance with that. So Circularise itself has been focusing really on this confidentiality paradox, where our technology is really trying to be providing both the transparency whilst also being able to protect and hide information. But this is just one element to traceability. The other areas that I would see around adoption at the moment really come into 4 different categories. One on the technology risk. Actually, Tom also described some initial inertia. Well, I'll deal with it when it comes, whereas obviously Teijin is taking a much more active approach. And then this comes down to the other point of the implementation complexity. I think, as Tom quite rightly referenced, if you just wait for it to come, you can't just flick a switch and suddenly all your data is magically there, structured, and able to meet all the regulatory obligations that are coming forward. And then this leads into the third point, which is the regulatory changes and uncertainties around that as well. So what I would also say within this process is you've got to start thinking about how you choose technologies. We don't want to end up creating a challenge in the past where one technology will do one set of materials because they all flow through the same value chain. So this is where we really need to deal with the interoperability challenge. This is another area that Circularise is also trying to work on. The other challenge that I see within this is also a bit around the mindset. And I would say we're historically used to spreadsheets. For decades, supply chains have been working on a patchwork of semi-trusted information. I send data to my auditor then approves this, I send this down. But it's a lot of bidirectional relationships. And what we've clearly shown, even within the examples that Teijin have just provided, there are many actors already within that process to be able to show, prove, validate. But this requires a mindset change. Data should not really be seen as a private asset anymore. It needs to be seen as a shared asset. But then this leads us back to that confidentiality issue. So this is something we still need to solve. The other challenge there is the regulatory changes. I saw some questions coming through from Inga and others around EUDR and when is the timeline for DPPs with QR codes? Well, unfortunately, and this is always the academic answer, it depends. It depends on your product category. It depends on the position in the value chain. Also, with the omnibus effect, some of the challenges around also the scale of your organization. So my advice here as well is really, as Teijin are trying to do, is get a front run on top of that regulatory requirement, because the third element here is really around the business case. So again, this is one of the areas where I have to promote Teijin and what they're trying to do. They're getting their business units involved, understanding how traceability will work for them. Also, Stein was commenting on, we can send this information, it's just a lot more efficient, but there's way more value that we can build off the back of that. And so really challenge some of these internal processes in your organization. If you have skeptics who say, okay, yes, but what is the immediate ROI? How do I, start making this part of my general business when spreadsheets are enough? Ask them simple questions. Okay, who built the spreadsheet? What happens if the person who built that leaves? How do you start to maintain that along a value chain? These are areas that we're trying to scale. And then I think the key challenge here is also a call to action to everyone on the call and others, is try to have the bigger vision, but also break it down into bite-sized chunks. Teijin have multiple business units, but they've chosen some of their more technical materials at the beginning, trying to find out, okay, how do we make this work and how do we scale it across the different business units? I don't know if that's fully answered the question though, Trish, or if there's anything follow-up from your side as well.
Yes, I think that pretty much answers it. When you talk about ROI, which are the key ROIs we're looking at when it comes to adoption of DPPs?
From my side, and then I will tee back to some Teijin colleagues, because I think it's very good to hear from, let's say, the horse's mouth in this regard. But my focus would be on what is the time to have materials certified? How long do I spend, or as an organization, how long am I spending for spot requests from downstream buyers for specific data points? I think this, and this is also referencing what Stein was saying, it's very easy and manageable to send the DPP out. So here is the material, here's the data linked to the material. Your question is probably in there. I do also think there's a lot of opportunities around proving, within the case of the carbon fibers, the recovered content. How do we get that into new markets? Again, this was referencing, what Matthew was describing. Do we take materials coming from aerospace? Do we provide that into another market, therefore cascading the value, proving the recovered content? But now I would also tee back to Teijin colleagues. Open question: what would be the key ROI points that you would be looking at? Anyone would like to take that? Tom, over to you.
Yeah, well, I think Stijn or Matthew, they have seen the first thing. They are close to the business, so perhaps they can give some light on what they expect kind of return on this investment for the future. So Stijn, Matt.
Yeah, well, shall I go first for a small comment? I mean, for us, it's really at the beginning. So what we are using this to do is to help launch a new product and to help give customers confidence that the product's what they expect. So yeah, in the end, I suppose we're doing big picture on it. We're not. I can't point to kind of individual requests for a how many questions are we answering on what's the recycled content of material, because we don't have any other materials that have a recycled content. This is the first step in that direction. So we're trying to give the marketplace confidence that the material is what they expect with the whole idea of a DPP.
So maybe for me to chime in as well a little bit. So the DPP for us also is kind of the way into the future, as in we are working a lot with recycle-based materials, bio-based materials. We're looking at them. We're seeing what we can do. And especially on the recycled-based, currently there's a lot of certification body schemes available, stuff like ISCC Plus, that type of thing, which is great for now. But eventually, that only gives you a small paper that says, this was recycled. And I think the DPP in the end will be the much more pure way to kind of prove actually what you're doing and where everything comes from, and that it's legit. So by starting with the DPP, we kind of try to get a head start there, and see that our customers, while it doesn't translate into literal profit, as in it doesn't translate to price differences, it does create a lot of understanding and appreciation for what we try to do as a sort of extra for our customers.
Yeah. And perhaps in addition to that, I think going from a linear to a circular economy requires a different way of collaboration. And all this is also very much based on trust and collaboration. And as Matt said, we are very much in the beginning, but this is our first proof of concept. And there may be customers from us who will be scared away a little bit if we ask them to be involved in this kind of exercise, because they do not know, or they're not on the same page, or they have some issues with understanding what it is. But on the other hand, it will take time, and when enough value chain partners really are participating in this DPP concept at some point of time, there's a different way of collaboration, because the transparency in the value chain, also selectively you can open information to other partners in the value chain, and that can lead to new collaborations or development of new products, or attract something new. So it's very difficult at this moment to monetize the return on investment. If you would take it as a business case, yeah, we will not have a strong business case right now. It's partly believed on part on the development, anticipating to the future, and finding new relationships with partners in the value chain where you can develop new things. So it's exciting, but it's also, yeah, unsure of how this exactly will develop. And, but I think, I believe, Stijn, perhaps you can, on your case in the collaboration with Hampijan, I have seen at least some very positive feedback from Hampijan towards Teijin and Aramid, that they say, okay, this is a different way of collaboration, and we are not only talking with the procurement departments in connecting the companies, but we also have another contact point where we can reinforce our collaboration. I believe that, yeah.
Yes.
If I can elaborate very shortly, Trishna.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
Indeed, what you say is correct, Tom. We see that with Hampijan and a couple of others. We see a very strong partnership kind of starting from a sustainability perspective. And while this is very good, we also see that these parties are the front runners, and they are not the biggest parties on the market. So this partnership is great. However, in the end, for your business, it's you also have to see what it does for the others, right? But as you do correctly mention, it creates another line of connection between you and a potential customer, and this line can be very valuable. Yes.
Great. Yes, it's always good to be a little ahead of the curve, no matter what. My next question is to Herké, actually. What, from the Aramid loop and the carbon fiber POCs, what are your learnings from these from these POCs, essentially? Could you give us some insight?
Yeah, thank you, Trishna. Yeah, maybe it's a little bit early for the key takeaway already, but if there's one thing that that you could take from the seminar, or from my opinion should take from the seminars, please start doing things. So please start doing the proof of concept. In the preparation phase, we had very good and very intensive discussions with the business units on what will occur, what will be the hurdles, and then when you start executing such a proof of concept, you find out that the hurdles you thought were the highest were the ones you passed the easiest, and you encounter all kinds of new hurdles. So really experimenting and experiencing what a DPP is and what you can put into it, what the value can be of it, if you can put quality reports in it, if you can disclose that to specific parties within your value chain. Those kinds of things, discovering these kinds of things are really helping you to spark new ideas, and also to make sure that people are aware of what's coming when it comes to legislation to be compliant. As earlier stated, this proof of origin. Right now, you can claim that something is recycled, and if you have a certificate or you have the proper certification, then you're okay. that will not surface in the future. You will need to be more transparent. So anticipating on that leads to insights that might give you a competitive edge in the near future. So those types of insights are only occurring when you really start doing things. So that would be my key takeaway. And then also it's the way to break down the concepts that Phil very nicely elaborated on into practical challenges in how transparent can you be in the DPP to everybody. What things do you want to mask to the general public, but do want to make sure that is available to your auditor if he audits you? These questions are very important, and the sooner you think about it, the better you are able to implement this into your future systems. And it is not an easy task. So you will be needing to talk to your IT department, to your logistics, to your sales. It's really an effort that goes across internal disciplines, but also reshapes the value in your value chain. There's different partners in the value chain who certainly get a different role. And that is something that you can experience by doing, and that helps you a lot in gaining future insights into where your value might lie.
Yep, that's actually very insightful. Thank you for the answer. And my next question would be to Phil, if you could elaborate a little bit more on beyond compliance, beyond the tick in the box compliance that everybody is going for at this point of time, which is driving this whole movement. Where does DPP driven business value show up first? For example, maybe trade and tariffs or customer engagement of sorts? What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, thank you. And okay, to broaden it out beyond just digital product passports, but digital traceability in general, yes. So the trade and tariff requirements. I think it was Winston Churchill who said, "Never waste a good crisis." When Trump comes out with a new tariff requiring automotive manufacturers, for instance, to go down to part level in specific locations, that could be a very useful use case for digital traceability. The challenge that we have is linking back to what Gerke was just saying. We've had customers come to us, or potential customers say, "Hey, can you solve this issue for me with the tariffs?" Problem is, no, we can't just turn a switch on and suddenly all your information is there. So linking that, and not just tariffs, but also generally in trade. Harmonized standardized codes for trade are being edited and reviewed right now to try and deal with some of the challenges of backflows of materials. So actually building that in with a digital traceability footprint could be really, really positive. Also, customer engagement, as you mentioned. Yes, when I'm in the store, and actually I saw Maria ask some questions about web shops. So I tried to give an answer there. But for instance, if I'm going to a web shop, can I actually compare product A with product B and get information similar to a Nutri-Score? This is how we try to deal with this idea. If you think about food packaging, we have a traffic light system. So can we start to come to those terms where customers can see data that actually says, I will buy this product and it is better than the other one from a sustainability and also economy footprint? I also noted a question from Andreas as well around remanufacturing. So our strategies. We have in other projects worked on repair and remanufacturing. So to others in the call, this would be if I have a technical product that comes back, say a car, a motor or something along those lines. Firstly, me as the actor in that process, I need a lot of information to do diagnostics to improve my own process. But I also then, if I'm dealing with end-of-life recovery, need to also prove to the original OEM or the brand who's put that product onto market that it has been recovered and has been successfully repurposed, remanufactured, or whatever process it has. So this is really expanding out the digital product passport just from that initial giving information to customers. I think there's a lot of other areas that we can see on this. Essentially, when you start to build this system in place, it really starts to build a lot of other business case and business value off the back. Could be around, looking at some of the regulations coming out of Europe as well around resiliency, around impacts around carbon balancing adjustment mechanisms. So when product is coming in, how do I firstly know where it's from, and can then I actually apply a carbon tax to that that's effective? But I also think which is also why a lot of our brands, and I'd also invite anyone on the call to look at some of the work that we've done with Samsonite, who wants to really prove what they've also been doing. Just as Teijin is in the material at the front end, they're very far removed from the customer. But in the case of a Samsonite or a brand, they need the information from Teijin to be able to demonstrate what they're actually doing along the entire value chain. I would also turn this back to some of the Teijin colleagues and see if they would like to expand on anything that I just said as well.
Christian, can you reply? Can you give some insights?
Do you in
Are you?
Yeah, sorry, I had some problems with the microphone. Well, yeah, I think from my point of view, in general, the point is that we as Teijin, we are of course in the material businesses at this moment. So we will of course look also for repair and other things. That was the question that was also raised up later on with our all other business units. But I think it is important to mention here that we have started just the process, and the process will take time to understand what it is all about. The process is, I think it's also a mindset point where we can say, if we look for circularity, it's different than in a linear business. So if we look for circular business, it means we have to take into account all the other people that are all the other supply chains and know what's happening there. That's why traceability and transparency is so important for us now to know and to understand the points. That's basically what I think is very important here.
Yeah. Well, to advocate a little bit on that, or to give perhaps a slightly also different discussion. Earlier, we said the return on investment for a company. We all see the return, but the return will take a long time and is quite unsure. But the investment is now. That is a bit issue at this moment, because we all know, well, chemical industry is their ups and downs, and at this moment, there's a lot of headwind. So there are a lot of short-term issues that have to be solved. Also within Teijin, let's be open about it. We are facing quite some headwind. So everybody will see the return on the long term, but the investment is now. So that is a bit of struggle. Let's say what we believe, what we see in Teijin is how to get to deal with that. We have to do the investment now, but the return will come very much later. How can we stimulate internally to doing the good things while actually the situation in the company can fluctuate from year to year and day to day. So that is an issue. I think there's no doubt that there is optimism about if this is going to happen. We need to do things. I think, well, majority of my colleagues in Teijin will certainly say yes, that's true, and we should do something about it. But the balance between the investment now and the return uncertainty very much later, that is a day-to-day challenge in the company, and that's also what we have to deal with.
That's very interesting. What other challenges do you see to the adoption of traceability in the market today? This is to the entire panel at large, so anybody can feel free to pick up this question.
Maybe one thing I would say to that, and repeating what I said before, I think the first thing is the mindset that we believe into circular economy. I think if we don't believe into circularity, then we can stay as we were. Of course, digital product passport would maybe be a different way to convey information, but it's still linear. So, but if we believe into circularity, we all have to make clear that we are part of a circle, and the materials or whatever we produce will come back and back and back again to us. And to a certain extent, we have to know, as we know it now for raw materials, where they come from, what was done with it, what are the properties. And we also want to share that with the rest of the supply chain, that they know what's happening. And I think for this, we need to prepare now, because if we don't believe in circularity, and whether it's because we are intrinsically believing into sustainability, or whether it's because of the pressure of governmental issues, anyhow, we need to be more transparent. And of course, for us, it was the first steps to do these POCs, to understand what are the hurdles. And if I just say something about one POC where we also said, okay, if we sell a kilogram of material and we want to have a kilogram of material back, we now see that we cannot trace the kilogram. So if we can trace something back, it's not a kilogram. So to understand where the material goes, what is the optimum for circularity that we can achieve, this all helps us when we have a transparent supply chain. And digital product passport for me is a good vehicle to work on that and to keep some things secret, what we want to keep secret, and the other things open to the players in the supply chain.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting. Before someone else also gives their opinion, I had a question for the audience as to uh, what do you use any digital tools to manage and verify your sustainability data right now? Like to understand where you are at this stage. And yes, Phil, I think you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I'd just like to build on what Christian said and also actually combine a message from Colm and Simeng, questions that they were asking. So some of the challenges, so firstly, Simeng was asking around the data availability challenge. Yes, we do come up against data availability challenges. That's also why Circularise is working on supply data collection tools to support that process. To Colm's question around the data and how this works along the value chain. So at this moment in time, yes, we are making DPPs per stage and then transferring and then aggregating those. But this then leads into one of the other challenges around, Circularise is just one system. How do we work with other systems, other traceability providers who have certain specialties? Ours is in polymers and chemicals. Some of our core technology around the IP protection and confidentiality is very relevant to that industry, although others as well. But how do we work with other providers where they can actually then feed in? This then also touches on the question from Maria, which is around how can a web shop engage and consolidate this? So this is not something that Circularise in on itself can solve by itself. This is actually where we need to kind of create this movement, this network of people who, as Christian and the teams have been saying, like, we've really got to try and change the mindset. But it's also around actually finding these touch points where we can share data and be interoperable between each other. And not just for the sake of doing it for a compliance issue, actually really finding the core business value that is inherent within that. I think for me, that's where I would take things. I don't know, anyone else from Teijin's side that'd like to add, because we've got about 5 minutes or so, or if there's a burning question from the audience.
Yep, I think that's good enough. And I think one last question where we can talk about is the future, and any advice you would have to the audience about what the next step should be, according to you, what Teijin is doing or what Circularise is doing in general.
Yeah, I think if we continue the collaboration, which we are definitely wanting to do, expanding the proof of concept, get more leverage in the company. There are plenty of opportunities on what we can do more, but we are all, let's say, in our own channel of innovation. Circularise is in a certain stage. We are in a certain stage. But what is very nice about this collaboration is that we have very intensive and frequent contacts, not only within the proof of concept, but also on other levels. We discuss issues, we discuss legislation, what is upcoming legislation. I also see that Circularise provides newsletters, white papers, in order to get understanding for what we're all doing. So actually, I do not have a very clear answer from my perspective of what will be the future, but I see a lot of good elements if the road indeed towards digital passports will evolve as we all believe, to further stimulate collaboration and so on. Because what we can provide to Circularise is, I believe, the real proof of concept results. So what is really happening when you want to implement these systems into an organization? And that can also, I believe, circularize very much in further developing the products and developing Circularise itself. So, as all things in innovation, you may dream to the future what you can do, and of course we can do that. But I think it's very important what has been said earlier, that doing concrete steps, just starting, finding out what is working, what is not working, will help us hand in hand to move along the way. So innovation is not something which is really transformational, which is really a great. We all would like to be the new Google or whatsoever, but that's not realistic. Realistic is start actions, find out together, collaborate, and then there will be a nice future together. Although I cannot predict what it exactly will be.
Yeah, thanks. Uh, let's just, before we wrap up, there are a few questions from the audience. Some of them have already been answered by our panel members. I'm just going to raise some where we've gotten a few upvotes and a couple of people asking these questions. I think the first one would be from Christelle, where I think this was towards Stein or Matthew, where we're talking about the product in general, where how do your customers value your approach to circularity and digital passports for these particular products? Maybe it's too early or too soon to say, but anything that you might have seen so far already in the approach towards how customers are valuing this?
I can try to keep it really short looking at the time. We, not specifically for just circularity and digital product passports, but also in general sustainability, we see that customers value it as a sparring partner and they see it as a plus, but they don't want to allocate extra, for example, pricing because of it. So that's a very short answer.
Another one would be, how extensive is the work involved in modifying or improving Teijin's existing data structure, or DPP, for sustainability initiatives in general?
I think Terra might have a better idea on this.
Yes, I can see him smiling.
A quick answer, maybe?
Yeah, the quick answer is that we did not find any information that wasn't already there. So it's really about reorganizing information. And the question is not so much about availability. The question is really about when do you want to disclose what and in which system is it and how can you get it available. Technically, that there are solutions for this. But the challenge here is much more the strategic one on what do we want to disclose when to whom. And how do we want to really use the digital product passport to enable the different processes that we want to support with it in the value chain. So that is the short answer. But to be clear, all the information that we needed for the passport was already there in our systems.
Right. I think we're out of time, so apologies to those who we couldn't answer, but I think we managed to cover most of them. Thank you again for your time today, and I hope this session was very insightful to all of you. You can reach out to us on info@circularise.com or and Teijin as well on their website, and I'm sure we'd be able to help you out if you have any more questions. Thank you again, and thank you to the panelists for your time and your expertise. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Ciao, everyone.